Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva naram devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudhirayet nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Okay, so today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, texts 28 to 30. Shyamam Sada Pivyavayonga Lakshmya Srinam Manogyam Ruchirasmitena Pratyutitaste munayasvasanebhyas talakshanagyapi gudavarchasam. And synonyms we'll say together. Shamam, blackish. Ksada, always. Apivya, excessively. Vaya, age. Anga, symptoms. Lakshmya, by the opulence of. Srinam, of the fair sex. Managyam, attractive. Ruchira, beautiful. Smitena, smiling. Prajutita, stood up. Te, all of them. Munaya, the great sages. Swa, own. Asanebhya, from the seats. Tat, those. Lakshanagya, expert in the art of physiognomy. Api, even. Gudavarchasam, covered glory. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. He was blackish and very beautiful due to his youth. Because of the glamour of his body and his attractive smile, he was pleasing to women. Though he tried to cover his natural glories, the great sages present there were all expert in the art of physiognomy, and so they honored him by rising from their seats. Okay, so just for context, anybody out there in Zoom, who's being described right now? Donovan said you were talking, but then I didn't hear anything.
We have Bluetooth. We are using. We are in the car. Maybe.
Okay. So who are we? Who's being described?
Sukadeva Goswami only, right?
Sukadeva Goswami. Yes. And we learned that he has a hue similar to Krishna, and we talked about how Krishna doesn't mind sharing some of his glories and opulences with others. He's not insecure. He's not jealous. He's not a miser. So he shares some of his opulences with other devotees. And that's one of the types of liberation, right? Is that you have the same form as the Lord or the same opulences in the Vaikuntha planets. Okay, so but the sages recognized they were expert in the art of physiognomy, which means that I don't know much about this art but it's if you see in the word for word in the Sanskrit, it's lakshana gya. Gya means knowledge, right? And then lakshana means the characteristics or qualities of something. So they were expert in understanding by seeing somebody that what their qualities were and what their characteristics were. So they rose from their seats. And then text 29. Sa Vishnurato titaya gataya tasmai saparyam sirasajahada tato nibrita yabudastriyo braka mahasane so pavivesha pujita. Maharaj Parikshit, who was also known as Vishnu Rata, one who was always protected by Vishnu, bowed his head to receive the chief guest, Shukadeva Goswami. At that time, all the ignorant women and boys ceased following Sri Shukadev. Receiving respect from all, Sukadeva Goswami took his exalted seat. Purport. On Sukadeva Goswami's arrival at the meeting, everyone except Srila Vyasadeva, Narada, and a few others stood up. And Maharaj Parikshit, who was glad to receive a great devotee of the Lord, bowed down before him with all the limbs of his body. Sukadeva Goswami also exchanged the greetings and reception by embrace, shaking of hands, nodding, and bowing down, especially before his father, Narada Muni. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Before his father and Narada Muni. I was thinking Narada Muni's not his father. What am I missing here? So he's bowing down, especially before his father and Narada Muni. Thus, he was offered the presidential seat at the meeting. When he was so received by the king and sages, the street boys and less intelligent women who followed him were struck with wonder and fear. So they retired from their frivolous activities, and everything was full of gravity and calm. And then text 30. Sasamritas tatra mahan mahiyasam brahmarshi rajarsi devarshi sangai vyaro chatalam bhagavanya tendur grahar kshatara nikarai pradita. Sukadeva Goswami was then surrounded by saintly sages and demigods, just as the moon is surrounded by stars, planets, and other heavenly bodies. His presence was gorgeous, and he was respected by all. Purport. In the great assembly of saintly personalities, there was Vyasadeva, the Brahmarshi, Narada, the Devarshi, Parashuram, the great ruler of the Kshatriya kings, etc. Some of them were powerful incarnations of the Lord. Sukadeva Goswami was not known as Brahmarshi, Rajarsi, or Devarshi, nor was he an incarnation like Narada, Vyasa, or Parashuram. And yet he excelled them in respects paid. This means that the devotee of the Lord is more honored in the world than the Lord himself. One should therefore never minimize the importance of a devotee like Sukadeva Goswami. Okay, so let's go back one. I think there was no purport to the previous one. Okay, so interesting point. These young boys and women were following Sukadeva Goswami. You know, it's not every day that a person who's very effulgent in the color of Krishna comes around naked, right? Walking around naked and just kind of seemingly in his own. Sukadeva Goswami doesn't appear to have paid any attention to them at all. He was walking around and they were following them, but he wasn't paying attention, which is such a contrast to those of us in conditioned consciousness, how conscious we are of other people looking at us or other people, what other people think of us, right? Because of our ahankar, our false ego, we're very concerned about what people think of us. Now, on the one hand, we should be concerned in one sense what people think of us because we don't want to offend anybody, right? We don't want to act in such a way that makes people upset or makes people uncomfortable. And we want to be doing what's pleasing to Krishna, what's pleasing to the Vaishnavas. And so we have to some extent, be concerned about what people think of us, at least the people who are of spiritual consciousness, who are of good character and whose opinion we value, right? We are concerned about what they think of us because, well, we value their opinion. And why do we value their opinion? Because they want what's best for us and what's best for everybody else in terms of our eternal duties, right? Our real identity. They want us to reawaken our love for Krishna, to make advancement on the path of Krishna consciousness, to serve properly, to serve the devotees properly, to serve Krishna properly, to do our duties properly. And we're going to them for guidance. And so, of course, we're concerned of what they think of us. But there's another kind of concern or another, people are worried what others think of them. And that is the false ego concern where we think, do I look good enough? Do I look weird? Are they going to laugh at me? Are they going to make fun of my outfit? Are they going to make fun of my hair? Whatever it is, pick your thing that you're concerned about, because everyone has a different thing that they're worried about. Does my makeup look okay? Does my suit look okay? Does my tie match what I'm wearing? All these things. And it could go even further into people concerned about whether or not they look successful in this world, right? So you have, I've heard that there are these, like you can hire a woman to escort you to an event so that it looks like you look successful, not only in your business and in your wealth, but in your choice of women, right? So it's like picking out a car or something. It's like, okay, I'll take that woman and I'll bring her. And if she's on my arm, she's taking my arm into an event, then everyone's going to think how successful I am and how attractive I am. And I must have attracted these beautiful women with my power and my wealth and my good looks and my car, right? So they get these, what wealthy people do with their money a lot is oftentimes is they'll have a car collection. They'll collect things, they'll collect homes, they'll collect cars. And so they're very concerned about looking successful to everybody else. And that just, speaks to our desire to want to replace Krishna, right? We want to be Krishna. We want to look like Krishna. We want to, because Krishna's always surrounded by beautiful devotees, and beautiful, not just in a mundane sense, like in this material world, but in their character, like Shukadeva Goswami, in their character, they're very beautiful. And in their looks, they're very beautiful. And Krishna's surrounded by them. Why? Because of his character. It's not just because devotees in the spiritual world, they don't surround Krishna because he has a lot of money, right? I mean, he is the husband of the goddess of fortune. So he does have all the wealth, all the opulence, all the good looks, everything. But we talked about this before, the one characteristic he has that's ties all those things together and makes them valuable is his characteristics of complete detachment or renunciation, right? He's not exploiting these things. He's not using these things to try to make himself look better than everybody else, even though he is, even though he is above, he's the supreme personality of Godhead, as Prabhupada says. So he is supreme above all others. And Rupa Goswami establishes that in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu with his, those 4 characteristics that Krishna has that, that no one else has, not even the demigods, right? That he plays the flute that attracts the entire universe, the entire creation. He's always surrounded by loving devotees. He's more beautiful than anybody else, and he has pastimes, these amazing pastimes. This Prabhupada says, especially his childhood pastimes with his devotees, these attractive pastimes and loving pastimes. And so he is established as supreme above all others, but he doesn't have to show it off. It just exists. He doesn't have to hire the gopis. He doesn't hire a bunch of women to come dance with him, right? He doesn't have to do that. So people in this world, they try to boost themselves up because they want to be the supreme personality of Godhead. And they want the whatever wife or partner or mistress they have, they want them to be Radharani, right? It's like we're the supreme couple. We walk in the room and everyone looks at us. So you see these like celebrity weddings that everybody wants to see, or even in royal families, when there's a wedding, the whole world watches the wedding because it's reflection of our desire to see or witness the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, that exchange of pure love. And so when you see like a royal wedding for people, it's like this fairy tale wedding, that there are these 2 kind of topmost celebrities getting married, and it's the wedding of the century, and the wedding of the whatever decade. I guess those marriages, they also don't last very long always. But it's this huge event, and people even they'll make special meals, even though the royal couple has nothing to do with that meal. They make these special meals and special teas to watch the event. And so it just goes back to that reflection of our innate desire to see Radha and Krishna's pastimes and to see them exchange their pure love, and for us to exchange pure love with Krishna. Okay, so you see this person, he's naturally beautifully effulgent, and he has good character, as was talked about in the previous verses. Characteristics were very exalted. And he's walking around just in Krishna consciousness, and there are these people kind of following and gawking, right? They're kind of looking at him and thinking, what is this? What is going on? There's this boy walking around naked. But as soon as they see him enter this assembly and they see like, actually, he's a great personality, a great exalted personality, Prabhupada says they were struck with wonder and fear. So they might have been afraid that we kind of wandered into the wrong arena here. There's many powerful sages here, and this person that we were gawking at, and who knows, maybe even laughing, is actually a very powerful person. So in that culture, if somebody had understood the power of a great sage, they might be afraid of being cursed for doing what they did, afraid of making offenses and so on. And so they just they scrambled. They just kind of dissipated. They went off into back to where they came from. And then Prabhupada says everything was full of gravity and calm. So it must have been a little bit of a ruckus that they were creating. So now he comes and sits down. It's funny because no one really had to chase them off. They just saw what was going on and they understood and they left. And so we see this arrival of Shukadeva Goswami and then his interactions with others. Let's see. So Prabhupada says everyone except Vyasadeva and Narada stood up. And why is that? They're senior to Shukadeva Goswami. The other assembled devotees there are too, but there's a little more intimate relationship. Obviously, Vyasadeva's not going to stand up to receive his son. It's usually the other way around with the etiquette. You would stand up to receive your father. Okay, and so then in the next verse, it's described that Sukadeva Goswami was surrounded by saintly sages and demigods, just as the moon is surrounded by stars, planets, and other heavenly bodies. So it's creating this image in everyone's mind of how beautiful the whole scene looked, actually, not just that Sukadeva Goswami is very beautiful and there's all these powerful and saintly sages and demigods there, but the whole scene it looks like he's like the moon surrounded by stars, planets, and heavenly bodies. So his presence was gorgeous and he was respected by all. So just a little bit, let me see here. Okay, so we have Vyasadeva, Srila Prabhupada is referring to as a Brahmarshi, which means a great Brahmana sage. And then he refers to Narada as a Devarshi, which is a saintly demigod or a saint among the demigods, Prabhupada describes in another purport in the first canto. Prabhupada, when incarnations or avatars are brought up in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada often he makes a list of all the different directly empowered incarnations, indirectly empowered incarnations, or avatars. Incarnation is a loose translation of avatar. Incarnation literally means to go into the flesh, karna, right? Karna in or carne in the Latin languages means flesh. So to incarnate means to go into the flesh. But we know that Krishna comes in his own form, right? He doesn't come into a material body. He just descends. So that's what avatara means. It just means to cross down. Tara means to cross and ava means down. And so he comes down to this world in his own swarup, his own form. And the other avatars are just expansions of Krishna. They're not Krishna going into a human body. But then you have these Shaktyavesha avatars, which means the Shakti Aveshas into these forms. So you have a Shaktyavesha, it means Krishna's potency, his Shakti goes into, or I think Vish is the root that it comes from. It means to cause. Avesha means to cause that power to go into a person. And so that's why they're called, Prabhupada translates as empowered incarnations or empowered avatars. So he said, Prabhupada describes, this is in, let's see, the first canto, I think chapter 3 talks about because that's where you have that Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, that verse. All incarnations or avatars are stem from Krishna and his two-armed form playing the flute. Tribhanga, his three-bend threefold bending form. All the other avatars come from that form of Krishna. And so throughout that chapter, Prabhupada's explaining more in the purports. He said that Narada Muni is a directly empowered avatar. And Prabhupada said he's empowered with devotional service. And then Vyasadeva, we know he's empowered with, he's the, as sometimes said, the literary incarnation of Krishna, right? So Vyasa, the name Vyasa literally means to place apart. So asa means to place or or we know like asana means to sit or be situated somewhere, and V means apart. So he divided the Vedas, right? The Vedas were once one, the Rig Veda, and then he divided it into 4 Vedas. And of course, we know from the stories that from the Bhagavatam that he wasn't satisfied with just doing that. And Narada Muni came and preached to him that he should directly glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's, that's when he compiled the Bhagavatam. And then he said, Lord Parashuram, because Prabhupada mentions him in this verse, Parashuram, the great ruler of the Kshatriya kings. We know he's one of the Das avatars, but Prabhupada also says he's an avatar who received, actually, this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I can read those verses. He received the power to kill rogues and miscreants. So this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, text 372, where it says that. Actually, I think in that conversation between Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami, he talks about, let's see. Yeah, because he's in this chapter. Actually, let's see how much time we have. 24, it's 8:24. I don't want to go too far back. Where was Sanatana Goswami speaking to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, talking about the incarnations. And I believe at this point he's telling Lord Chaitanya that he has the symptoms of an incarnation, because Lord Chaitanya, let's see. Sorry, if I can't find it, I'll just move on. Yes, you must give up your intelligent tricks. And then he goes into the Shaktivesha avatars, because he says, the Sanatana Goswami says, the color of the personality in whom the characteristics of the Lord are found is yellowish. His activities include the distribution of love of Godhead and the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Obviously, that's Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya changes the subject. After that, he says, oh, Sanatana, you must give up your intelligent tricks. Now just try to understand the description of the Shaktivesha avatars. And so he's talking about, and again, we have limited time, but I'll go a little bit into this. If everyone can, I think I have it shared so that you can see this screen. Sorry if you can't. I'm not a wizard with Zoom. Prabhupada says, so here it says, I'm sorry, not Prabhupada, it's Lord Chaitanya speaking. He's actually quoting different verses. You can see when you go into the purports, Prabhupada will say sometimes which verse it comes from. It's a little later on, but he quotes some verses from the Gita and the Bhagavatam. So he says, empowered incarnations are of 2 types, primary and secondary. The primary ones are directly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are called incarnations. The secondary ones are indirectly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are called vibhuti. And Prabhupada says in one purport, I can't remember if it's here or the Bhagavatam, that those are described in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita. Let's see, was it here? I think it was in the Bhagavatam. So then he talks about these, some Shaktivesha avatars or the 4 Kumars, Narada, we talked about Narada Muni, Maharaj Prithu, and Parashuram. So he's describing Parashuram here as a Shaktivesha avatar. Let's see, just want to see. Oops. And then he goes on to talk about what types of powers were invested in different devotees. So, for example, the power of knowledge was invested into the 4 Kumars. The power of devotional service was invested in Narada. And the power of creation was invested in Lord Brahma. and the power to carry innumerable planets was invested in Lord Ananta. And then in the next verse, that's where he talks about Parashuram. Lord Parashuram received the power to kill rogues and miscreants. So those are, you can read through this chapter. Again, this is Madhya Lila chapter 20 to read about the different incarnations or Shaktivesh avatars, those who are empowered. So again, Krishna is sharing his power, right? He sends devotees to do things in this world. And we know Prabhupada obviously was empowered by Krishna, obviously. He spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. If we want to talk about the Jagat Guru, that's objectively speaking Srila Prabhupada, because he was the guru of disciples all over the world. To come here alone and then spread a movement, Krishna consciousness all over the world in a way that's sustainable. He didn't just come and go. It wasn't just a situation where he came, he got a bunch of people together to chant Hare Krishna, and then when he left, the whole thing fell apart. It just keeps expanding more and more and expanding all over the world. And so he was obviously empowered by Krishna to do a particular job. Now, we may ourselves were not, well, I don't know. Someone in the audience might be Shaktivesh Avatar. I'm not sure. We'd have to see if it matches the scriptures, but we may not be Shaktivesh Avatars, but we can still be whatever power we have, right? Krishna explains in the Gita that it comes from Krishna. Whatever we're capable of doing, we get the skills from Krishna. And so we want to be that instrument of Krishna when we are trying to spread Krishna consciousness, when we're trying to teach this philosophy or this path of bhakti to others, even when we're trying to do our service properly. We can always pray. When I cook, I always pray to Radharani because I know she's the most perfect cook for Krishna. So I always pray to use me as an instrument. So we can always pray to Krishna to empower us to use us as instruments, because that's a way in which we can remain humble. We can understand that even if I'm really good at something, it's only because Krishna gave me the ability to do so. And so in that way, we can humbly accept compliments from the devotees, because there's always that back and forth of, if you do something really well and a devotee tells you, you did that really well, I say, no, I didn't, because we want to be humble, right? No, I didn't. But instead we can say, yes, by the grace of Krishna, Krishna empowered me to do so. If anything's nice, if I did anything right, if I did anything properly, and if the devotees enjoyed it, it's because Krishna used me as an instrument. So we can always refer back to Krishna when we get any compliments on anything that we do, and appreciate Krishna's power or empowerment. That's whatever we did do, that's nice. We can see the glory of Krishna and see how he empowers his devotees and sends, just even the fact that we're in this world, that we decided to turn away from Krishna and reject him and abandon him. It just shows his glorious nature, that he sent devotees to this miserable place to get us. The fact that he sent Prabhupada, that he comes himself as Lord Chaitanya and himself as Krishna. The fact that he even comes to this world and tries to get us attracted, tries to get us to reawaken our love, tries to get us to remember who we actually are and to come back. We're like children that have misbehaved. And Krishna's like the parent who's just saying, I know you did something really stupid, but I'll come, and you're really embroiled in it. You're really entangled. But I'll come and try to help you. And if Krishna comes and tries to help us or his devotees and we say, no, thanks, he says, all right, I won't, I'll let you do your thing. I'll let you continue doing your thing, but I'll be here when you need me. I'll be here when you realize that your God project isn't working. And he's just there, as is described, two birds in a tree, right? That analogy is given. There's two birds in a tree. One is eating the fruits and one is witnessing. So Krishna is there as a super soul, witnessing us trying to enjoy the fruits of this world. And he's just waiting for us to turn to him. And as soon as we do, even when we do turn to Krishna, we can often throw temper tantrums with Krishna, right? We finally turn to him. He came to this world. He's there in our hearts, his super soul. He's there to help us, even though we turned away from him. And we can still act like big babies, right? We can throw a temper tantrum. Why didn't I get what I wanted? Why didn't you give me this? Why didn't you let me have that? Why this? Why that? Rather than saying, I'm really sorry that I left you. You've done nothing wrong. Let me do everything I can to not only to respect you again and have that relationship again, but to bring others to you. Like while I'm here, while we're here, we made this mistake. While we're here, might as well grab as many people as we can to try to bring them back to revive their dormant love for Krishna and remember who they actually are, instead of drowning in that pool of material suffering. Okay, so it's 8:32. I want to end there. Does anyone have any points, questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna.